In the bustling depths of Space Station Delta 9, where the artificial gravity keeps everyone's feet firmly planted and the recycled air carries the oddly comforting scent of industrial cleaners, my first day as Earth's culinary ambassador was about to become the stuff of legends. Not the kind of legends you want to be part of, mind you, but the kind that gets passed around during late-night shifts when everyone's had a bit too much synthetic caffeine. I remember standing there in my crisp white chef's uniform, desperately trying to smooth out wrinkles that the 3-month cryo sleep had somehow permanently pressed into the fabric. The station's interspecies cafeteria stretched before me, a marvel of engineering and diplomacy where beings from 17 different star systems came to break bread, or whatever passed for bread in their cultures. Just stick to the approved menu. Station Chief Roberts had warned me during orientation, her steel-gray eyes conveying the gravity of the situation. We've spent decades perfecting these recipes to ensure they're safe for all species. But I couldn't help thinking about the container of homemade chocolate chip cookies tucked away in my quarters, a reminder of Earth that I wasn't quite ready to let go of. The morning started smoothly enough. I served bowl after bowl of nutrient-balanced protein paste, each carefully calibrated to match the dietary requirements of our diverse clientele. The Zixtherian delegation seemed particularly pleased with their color-changing soup, while the crystalline lumini hummed contentedly as they absorbed their light-based meals. Then came the fateful moment when I saw him, a young Andromean diplomat, looking so dejected as he pushed around the standard-issue green protein cubes on his plate. Something in his 3 eyes reminded me of my little brother on Earth, facing down another plate of vegetables he didn't want to eat. That's when I made the decision that would either end my career or make history. I slipped back to my quarters during my break and retrieved the cookies. They were still perfectly preserved, each one a small masterpiece of butter, sugar, and chocolate. What's the worst that could happen? I thought. The Andromean's face lit up, quite literally, since their species bioluminesces when excited, as I offered him one of Earth's most beloved treats. Looking back, I should have known better. I should have remembered that chocolate contains theobromine, a compound that had never been properly tested on Andromean physiology. I should have considered that sugar affects different species in wildly different ways. But in that moment, all I saw was the universal language of comfort food working its magic across the stars. The chaos began exactly 3 minutes and 27 seconds later. The young diplomat's bioluminescence, usually a gentle blue glow, suddenly cranked up to supernova levels. He started hovering, which would have been normal for his species if he hadn't been floating a full meter higher than usual. Then came the giggles, a sound that no human had ever heard from an Andromean before. As I stand here now, watching the cafeteria descend into what I can only describe as an interstellar sugar rush of epic proportions, I'm starting to understand why there are so many regulations about cross-species food sharing. The Andromean diplomat is now teaching what appears to be a zero-gravity dance to a group of fascinated Zixtherians, while Station Chief Roberts is rapidly approaching with a look that suggests I might be spending the next year cleaning protein paste dispensers with a toothbrush. But here's the thing. In all the chaos, in all the brightness of warning lights, and the blare of minor emergency sirens, I can't help but notice something remarkable happening. For the first time in Station Delta 9's history, species that normally keep to their own tables are mingling, laughing, and sharing stories about their own forbidden foods from home. And maybe, just maybe, that's worth whatever punishment is coming my way. As the cafeteria continues to transform into what can only be described as an impromptu interstellar cultural festival, I find myself torn between pride and panic. The Andromean diplomat, still glowing like a disco ball at maximum brightness, has somehow managed to harmonize his bioluminescent pulses with the station's warning lights. It's actually quite beautiful in a potentially career-ending sort of way. Station Chief Roberts reaches me just as a group of lumini begin creating crystal formations that catch and refract all the flashing lights, turning the entire cafeteria into something between a dance club and an aurora borealis. Her expression suggests she's trying to decide whether to court-martial me or just jettison me out the nearest airlock. "Officer Chen," she says, using my surname with the kind of calm that makes me wish for the airlock option. Would you care to explain why I have reports of unauthorized Earth substances being distributed to our diplomatic guests? Behind her, I notice the Zixtherians have started to change colors in sync with the Andromeans' glow, creating patterns that would make a kaleidoscope jealous. I open my mouth to explain, but I'm interrupted by a deep, resonating sound that makes the floor vibrate beneath our feet. The Centaurian ambassador, a being who normally communicates through subtle gravitational fluctuations, is laughing. I didn't even know they could laugh. The chocolate appears to have affected each species differently, as the cookies have made their way around the room like some kind of sugary contraband. Chief, I start, trying to sound more professional than I feel. I know this looks bad, but look at what's happening. I gesture to where Illuminae is teaching a group of Zixtherians how to create prismatic light shows, while the Andromean diplomat excitedly explains the concept of sugar rush to an increasingly intrigued audience of various species. The station's xenobiologists burst into the cafeteria, armed with scanners, and looking both terrified and fascinated. They're immediately drawn to the Centaurian ambassador, who has somehow managed to create a perfect gravitational replica of Earth's solar system, complete with orbital patterns. One of them mutters something about unprecedented cross-species behavioral modifications, while frantically taking notes. Do you have any idea? Chief Roberts continues, though I notice her eyes tracking the impromptu physics demonstration with poorly concealed interest. How many diplomatic incidents could arise from unauthorized food sharing? The last time someone brought non-regulation substances into this station, we nearly started an interstellar incident because Illuminae discovered they could get tipsy on fermented fruit juice. I'm about to respond when one of the xenobiologists rushes over, waving a scanner excitedly. Chief, you need to see these readings. The theobromine is interacting with various alien physiologies in fascinating ways. It's not harmful. It's actually promoting increased neural activity. And she pauses, squinting at her device. Cross-species empathy? The cafeteria has transformed into something I never expected to see in my lifetime. Species that normally require translator devices to communicate are somehow understanding each other through a combination of light shows, gravitational pulses, and what appears to be interpretive dance. The Andromean diplomat, still floating higher than protocol strictly allows, is teaching others how to say chocolate in his native tongue, a complex series of light pulses that the Luminae are particularly enthusiastic about replicating. Chief Roberts pinches the bridge of her nose. A gesture I've learned means she's fighting between maintaining protocol and acknowledging when something unexpected might actually be beneficial. Behind her, I spot several members of the station's security team sneaking cookies into their pockets while they think no one's watching. What started as a simple act of kindness has evolved into something that centuries of careful diplomatic relations haven't achieved: genuine, unscripted interaction between species that normally keep their distance. But as I watch the scene unfold, I can't help but wonder, what happens when the sugar rush wears off? The sugar-induced interstellar party is in full swing when the station's environmental sensors start picking up something unexpected. The Andromean diplomat's intense bioluminescence, combined with the Luminae's crystal light shows and the Centaurians' gravitational experiments, is creating some sort of cascading effect through the station's power grid. The overhead lights begin to pulse in sync with the festivities, spreading far beyond the cafeteria. Officer Chen, the station's eye, announces over the intercom, its usually monotone voice carrying a hint of what sounds suspiciously like amusement. The energy readings from the cafeteria are interfering with our main power distribution systems. Also, I believe I'm experiencing what humans call a contact high through my sensor arrays. Chief Roberts' communicator starts buzzing with incoming messages from every deck. Apparently, the combination of various alien biological responses to chocolate is creating some kind of ripple effect throughout the station. The hydroponics bay reports their plants are growing at 3 times their normal rate. The quantum computing lab claims their calculations are solving themselves. And most concerning of all, the station's artificial gravity is starting to hiccup in rhythm with the Centaurian ambassador's laughter. We need to contain this, Chief Roberts declares, just as a group of Zixtherians float past us, their color-changing bodies now displaying what appears to be a perfect reproduction of Earth's classic movie scenes. I recognize snippets of Star Wars swirling across their iridescent forms, which would be fascinating if it weren't so alarming. The xenobiologists are beside themselves with excitement, their scanners smoking from overuse. The theobromine molecules are somehow catalyzing with various alien neural patterns. One explains breathlessly. It's creating a kind of psychic resonance that's, wait, is that the matrix playing on the Zixtherians? The situation reaches a new level of chaos when the Luminae discover they can use their crystals to amplify the Andromeans' bioluminescent pulses. The resulting light show is so spectacular it starts attracting curious residents from other decks. Soon, the cafeteria is packed with humans and aliens alike, all drawn to what's quickly becoming the biggest party in the station's history. I watch in a mixture of horror and amazement as my simple act of sharing cookies snowballs into what might be either a diplomatic breakthrough or an interstellar incident. The energy readings continue to climb, and the station's AI keeps making increasingly worrying announcements about power fluctuations and system anomalies, though it now seems to be delivering them in rhyme. Chief, I say, watching as the Centaurian ambassador's gravitational manipulations start to affect the coffee in everyone's cups, causing it to float in perfect spheres above their mugs. I think we might need to evacuate the non-essential personnel. Just as I finish speaking, the artificial gravity gives another hiccup, stronger this time, causing everyone to momentarily float a few inches off the ground. The station's main lights flicker ominously, and for a moment, everything goes dark except for the Andromeans' glow and the Luminae's crystal displays. In that brief moment of darkness, I can feel the tension in the room shift from celebratory to uncertain. The sugar rush is reaching its peak, and with it, the various alien physiologies are pushing the station's systems to their limits. Chief Roberts looks at her communicator as it lights up with another urgent message. Her face, illuminated by the various alien light shows, grows serious. "Officer Chen," she says, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "We've got a bigger problem. The station's orbital stabilizers are starting to synchronize with the energy fluctuations. If we don't get this under control in the next 10 minutes..." She doesn't need to finish the sentence. I know enough about space station operations to understand what happens when orbital stabilizers start to fail. As I look around at the joyous faces of humans and aliens alike, all brought together by a simple batch of chocolate chip cookies, I realize I need to find a way to end this party before it literally brings down the house. The question is, how do you stop an interstellar rave when half the participants are literally glowing with happiness, and the other half are experiencing forms of euphoria never before documented in their species? Just as Chief Roberts and I are trying to formulate a plan to contain the situation, the station's AI makes another announcement, this time in what sounds like a mix between opera and beatboxing. "Alert! Multiple diplomatic vessels approaching Delta 9. The Galactic Council representatives have arrived early for their annual inspection. Estimated time of arrival, 7 minutes. The blood drains from Chief Roberts' face. Of all the days for the Galactic Council to show up early, it had to be when our station looks like a cross between a rave party and a physics experiment gone wrong. The Andromean diplomat, still floating near the ceiling, suddenly dims his bioluminescence. Apparently, even in his sugar-heightened state, he understands the gravity of the situation. 6 diplomatic vessels, all carrying high-ranking council members. The AI continues, now somehow managing to deliver critical information through interpretive dance patterns in the overhead lights, including representatives from the Zixtherian High Command, the Luminae Collective, and, oh my, the Grand Centaurian Observer themselves. The news ripples through the cafeteria. The Zixtherians' movie displays flicker to scenes of disaster films, betraying their anxiety. The Luminae's crystals start vibrating at frequencies that make my teeth ache, and the Centaurian ambassador's gravitational manipulations briefly intensify, causing everyone's shoes to stick to the ceiling instead of the floor. "We have 2 problems," Chief Roberts says, checking her communicator. "The orbital stabilizers are 3 minutes from critical failure, and we have 7 minutes before the most powerful beings in the galaxy arrive to find their diplomats high on chocolate chip cookies. Options: Officer Chen? That's when the second complication hits. The sugar crash begins. The Andromean diplomat's glow starts flickering like a faulty light bulb, and the Zixtherian's colors begin to fade to a uniform gray. The Luminae's crystals droop, and the Centaurian ambassador's perfect gravitational solar system model collapses into what looks more like an abstract art piece. 3 diplomatic vessels now requesting emergency docking procedures. The eye announces, its voice now somehow combining country western with classical Sanskrit. Apparently, they're detecting unusual energy signatures from the station. How fascinating. I've composed a haiku about it. Not now. Chief Roberts and I shout in unison. The xenobiologists rush over with their latest readings, looking both terrified and thrilled. The crash is accelerating the energy buildup, one explains, showing us a graph that's climbing faster than my heart rate. When their bodies try to return to normal, the excess energy has to go somewhere. At this rate, she's interrupted by a station-wide shudder. The artificial gravity flutters again, but this time it's not following any rhythm. It's just failing. The emergency lights kick in, bathing everything in a red glow that mixes chaotically with the fading alien light shows. 4 minutes until first council ship docks. The AI sings in what I'm pretty sure is supposed to be jazz fusion. Also, primary power grid is experiencing what humans might call a sugar crash. How delightfully metaphorical. I look around the cafeteria at the various species, all starting to show signs of exhaustion and confusion. The Andromean diplomat has descended to eye level, his glow now barely a nightlight's worth. The Zixtherians are huddled together, their surfaces showing what appears to be scenes from The Hangover, which I'm pretty sure none of them have ever actually seen. That's when I notice something about the pattern of power fluctuations on Chief Roberts' tablet. They're not random. They're following the same wavelength as the Andromean's original sugar-high bioluminescence, but in reverse. And suddenly, I have an idea so crazy it just might work, or get us all fired, or possibly trigger an interstellar incident. Chief, I say, reaching into my pocket where I still have one last cookie, I think I know how to fix both problems at once, but you're really not going to like it. The station shudders again, harder this time, and through the cafeteria windows, we can see the first diplomatic vessel approaching. Its sleek form gleams in the starlight, growing larger by the second, while behind us, the various species in the cafeteria are looking more and more like the morning after a college party. Chief Roberts looks at me, then at her tablet showing the critical system's failure countdown, then at the approaching ship. Officer Chen, she says with a resigned sigh, what exactly are you thinking? The energy patterns, I explain quickly, pulling out my last cookie, they're reversing. What if we could use that? Like a wave canceling out another wave. The xenobiologists' eyes widen as they catch on to my thinking, their scanners already recalibrating to test my theory. 2 minutes until critical orbital failure, the AI announces in what has somehow evolved into a jazz rap fusion. Also, first diplomatic vessel preparing to dock. They're asking why their gravity sensors are detecting. Oh my, that's not normal. I break the last cookie into precise pieces, remembering my basic physics classes. The sugar crash isn't just affecting them physiologically, it's creating an energy vacuum. If we time this right, we can use that vacuum to absorb the excess energy in the station's systems. Chief Roberts looks at me like I've suggested solving our problems with magic, which, to be fair, isn't far from what I'm proposing. But before she can respond, the Andromean diplomat floats over, his dimming bioluminescence pulsing in a pattern that matches the station's power fluctuations perfectly. I understand, he says, his 3 eyes focusing on the cookie pieces, like the gravity assists we use in spaceflight, but with energy. He reaches for a piece of the cookie, and suddenly all the xenobiologists' scanners start beeping at once. What happens next is either the most brilliant or most ridiculous moment in space station history. The Andromean takes a bite, and for a split second, nothing happens. Then his bioluminescence flares one last time, bright as a supernova. But this time, it's different. The energy patterns visible on the xenobiologists' scanners show a perfect inverse wave to the station's power fluctuations. The lumini immediately catch on, their crystals resonating with the new frequency. The Zixtherians, their color displays now showing scenes from various physics documentaries, align their own energy patterns. Even the Centaurian ambassador, still slightly sugar-buzzed, adds a gravitational component that seems to stabilize the whole effect. 30 seconds to critical failure, the AI announces, now somehow managing to combine dubstep with classical opera. Oh, energy patterns are... Wait, this is unprecedented. Like a perfectly orchestrated symphony, the various alien physiologies work in concert, creating an energy sink that begins to absorb the chaos we've generated. The station's lights stabilize, the gravity normalizes, and the orbital stabilizers begin to recover. Just as the first diplomatic vessel completes its docking procedure, everything snaps back to normal. The aliens return to their natural states, the power systems settle, and even the AI's voice returns to its usual monotone. We've done it. Crisis averted. Or so we think. The cafeteria doors slide open, revealing the Galactic Council representatives in all their formal glory. They pause, taking in the scene, the slightly disheveled diplomats, the scattered crystal formations, and the lingering scent of chocolate in the air. That's when the Grand Centaurian observer does something unprecedented. They float forward, their gravitational field rippling with what our sensors identify as amusement. Is that... They pause, their translator struggling to find the right words. Chocolate chip cookies I smell. The entire cafeteria holds its breath. Chief Roberts looks like she's about to faint. I'm mentally updating my resume. But then the observer continues. I haven't had those since my unauthorized visit to Earth in 1947. Roswell, I believe it was called. Lovely little bakery there. The silence that follows is broken only by the sound of Chief Roberts' tablet clattering to the floor. The AI, apparently unable to help itself, begins playing what sounds suspiciously like the X-Files theme song through the station's speakers. And just like that, I realize that my little cookie incident hasn't just averted a crisis. It's accidentally uncovered one of the biggest secrets in human history. As I watch the Grand Observer happily accept a slightly crumbled cookie piece from my hand, I can't help but wonder how many other galactic secrets have been shaped by Earth's comfort food. The Andromean diplomat catches my eye and winks, all three of them, as he helps himself to another piece. Somehow, I get the feeling this isn't going to be the last time Earth cuisine causes chaos in our little corner of the galaxy. In the days following what station crews now affectionately call the Great Cookie Incident, life on Delta 9 settled into a new kind of normal. The Galactic Council's inspection turned out to be the most relaxed in station history, largely because the Grand Centaurian Observer spent most of it sharing stories about their secret Earth adventures and requesting various human snack foods. Chief Roberts, showing adaptability that reminded me why she's in charge, didn't just avoid punishing me. She actually promoted me. Officer Chen, she said during the ceremony, your quick thinking and understanding of cross-species relations, however unorthodox, represents the true spirit of our mission here. The fact that she was enjoying a chocolate chip cookie while saying this did not go unnoticed. The xenobiologists had a field day with their readings from the incident. Their preliminary paper, The Effects of Terrestrial Sucrose-Based Compounds on Interstellar Diplomatic Relations, is already being hailed as groundbreaking. They're particularly excited about the discovery that chocolate can temporarily enhance cross-species communication, though they've wisely suggested that future experiments should use smaller portions. The station's AI has retained a slight personality quirk from its exposure to the energy fluctuations. It now delivers all emergency announcements in rhyming couplets, which most of the crew finds more entertaining than annoying. Last week's maintenance alert about a minor coolant leak became an impressive rap battle between the AI and the repair crew. As for our diplomatic guests, the incident seems to have created lasting bonds. The Andromean diplomat now hosts weekly cultural exchange sessions in the cafeteria, where species share their own versions of comfort food. We've discovered that Luminae crystal cakes create stunning light shows when properly prepared, and Zixtherian mood fruits can tell jokes through color changes. The Centaurian Ambassador's gravitational spice blends are particularly popular, though we had to ban them from movie nights after they made everyone float during an emotional scene. The station's cookbook has been officially expanded to include a new section titled Fusion Cuisine, a guide to safe cross-species culinary adventures. Each recipe comes with a detailed warning system and required gravitational stabilizer settings. My chocolate chip cookie recipe is in there too, though it's marked with so many warning labels it looks like a hazardous materials document. Perhaps the most surprising outcome was the Grand Observer's revelation about Earth's culinary influence on galactic politics. Apparently, our planet has been unofficially known as the snack capital of the galaxy for centuries. Those mysterious crop circles, just alien food critics leaving reviews, the Observer's personal favorite, a small diner in New Mexico that still serves the best pie in 9 dimensions. Looking back, I realized that sometimes the biggest diplomatic breakthroughs don't come from formal negotiations or carefully worded treaties. Sometimes they come from simple acts of sharing, even if those acts temporarily disrupt a space station's orbital stability and nearly cause an interstellar incident. Last week, I received a package from Earth. Inside was a note from my mother and a fresh batch of her special snickerdoodles. As I looked at those cinnamon-dusted cookies, I couldn't help but smile, remembering how a simple taste of home had changed everything. I shared them during the next cultural exchange session. After getting proper clearance, and with the orbital stabilizers on maximum, of course. The station's new motto, suggested by the AI in one of its more poetic moments, now reads, Delta 9, where different species break bread and sometimes physics. It's not the most professional slogan, but it captures who we are perfectly. As I stand in my kitchen, preparing for another day of feeding the galaxy's most diverse group of diners, I can't help but think that maybe this is what space exploration was always meant to be about, not just reaching for the stars, but sharing a piece of who we are with them. Even if that piece happens to be a chocolate chip cookie that temporarily turns everyone into a glow stick.